Hey folks, this is an experiment. Now, right now, I look like crap, not just crap, but crap warmed over. So if Dino here starts flickering in and out, I'm out of here. It's only a body, but maybe I got a little more respect for my audience. Okay, this journal came right after the last one I just posted. It's 11:20, the second of that day. I don't know the Mayan day. Victim, useful tantrums, and shifting perspective. Just finished a 9-page journal on dealing with pain. Well, that is a simplistic summary, but if you viewed the previous journal, you know what is meant. Well, when I got to the end and I was selecting keywords, tags to go with it, I realized there had been no mention of the victim persona or consciousness. Now, frankly, that is wild. It's a glaring omission, and thus this journal to address the very present issue, not just in me, but in the whole world. You know, the victim consciousness is rife everywhere we look, and yes, that includes looking within. Are you surprised? Had you ever considered that sometimes maybe you play the victim role? If this idea is new to you, be sure to drop down out ahead into chest or heart, or just center in the here now. Take a few moments to do that, or your mind will lead you on a fine hide-and-seek chase in order to avoid the reality inside self. There's a mental trick I have that I use against the mind, and that's previous lifetimes. Even if you don't believe in them, you can still imagine this. So, do you sense yourself as an old soul? Maybe very old? Do you have that sort of ancient sense regarding self, or maybe sometimes connect with it within? Okay, from there, go into envisioning that you've had many, many what some call previous lifetimes. You've been not just on this planet, not just in this form, but in others, on others as well. Maybe even a dinosaur, huh? The soul is quite curious and eager for experience. So we've done a lot of exploring. That's what it amounts to. Well, one of those things we explore in addition to other worlds and other forms is the other side of the coin, the dark side. From your center point there, look and realize that you haven't always been perfect in all of those lives. Heck no, you've been a real scoundrel in plenty of them, so have I. How else could we learn? So the trick played on mind is to have it realize that there's nothing that could be done that the I hasn't done at one time or another. We've been robber and king, beggar and priest, thief, warrior, rapist, and rapee. We've also been the victims of all of those. We've had lives on both sides of the coin. Now, how could it be otherwise, considering that the whole cosmos is just one anyway? No matter what it is, even if I haven't had a lifetime as that or doing that, then just in the overall oneness, I am that. All is one. So there's no leaving the dirty parts out. Sorry. Now, this can help settle down the tendency to judgment that mind has, especially the Virgos out there. It can help mind give over to heart as well, knowing heart as the true source, the repository or contact point for all of that other stuff. So you can take the route of the overall oneness or the route of the other incarnations to help you leap the hurdle before you. What is that? Owning your own dark side. Simply allowing it to exist. It does, you know. Don't go for those philosophies that only want to deal with, focus on, or look at the light. That's fine for a time, but after a bit, the pendulum will have to swing the other way, and that's not so enjoyable. Okay, they are not balanced, and one day balance will come and claim them. What they create for themselves in following such paths is the equal experience of the dark that they deny. Physics shows us that the pendulum does swing both ways and in equal measure. Perhaps you can see in this why this soul that I am is so married to balance, how I hold that up in such high regard. Anyway, anytime you want to step off the crazy merry-go-round of the wild ups and downs of life here in 3D, just set out after balance. Let your ideal spot to occupy be ever the fulcrum point of equal measure on both sides. See? Any philosophy that denies being to the dark side of the equation is out of balance. They're just setting themselves up to have experience on the opposite pole of the one chosen this time. Wisdom would tell us not to make such choices, the out of balance kind. Enough said. Okay, now for our little walk on the dark side, let's look at the victim consciousness. Those of you who are willing. We have all this in lesser or greater measure, no matter whether we've allowed the self to be aware of it or not. It's just a given. Kids play in mud and dirt and they get dirty. It's pretty basic. It's not evil. So dive down into heart and let's go. How do you play the victim? How do I? Let me ask you this. Do you ever point the finger of blame anywhere? That's the other side of this victim thing. For the victim requires the oppressor, the one doing the harm, right? Can you see this? They're part of a well-matched pair, victim and oppressor or aggressor. Good guy and bad guy. It's an old story for sure. And we can see it in action everywhere. Well, we're not looking for it out there in the world. Let's stay within, where we have power to make changes. Do you feel that someone, anyone, has been mean or unkind to you? Find the victim there. Now own it. Just let it be. Just be willing to see it. You as the one hard done by, and that other guy as the one who brings you the pain, the one you want to blame for it, not knowing it's a dance. Now, this should be easy to spot. If it's not, chances are good you're still in the mind. Mind doesn't want to see this since mind is equal to ego, which always wants to be superior or right. So maybe sleep on this and come back to it later. If you set your intent to actually see this, if you're willing to see, then you will. Just know not to bring mind along on this journey. It's made in heart. Okay, so once we've seen how we do play the victim role, this should be easy to spot. If not, chances are you're still in mind. Okay, so once we've seen how we do play the victim role, we can call on mind to use the logic of what you resist persists to look ahead a bit into the future we're creating this way by playing the victim. By its very nature, the victim is a resistant pose. It doesn't want to be in that position, whatever it is. It wants out. Well, that's resistance by definition, isn't it? Right? So by playing the victim in any way, shape, or form, and we have it in many ways inside, We bring on ourselves more of the same. If we can step back far enough to get the overall lifetime's view, what we will see is how we teeter-totter back and forth between aggressor and victim. That's the overall picture, for the two are just one, victim-aggressor, then aggressor-victim. They can't be separated. The eternal opposition, the eternal resistance playing out. This is a lose-lose proposition. So even logic tells us it's just best to come down off the high horse of being righteous, of being the injured party, finally of being right. We are none of that. That's just the mind at work, weaving its tales. As long as we're willing to sit still and listen to the story it tells, it will keep us on this no-win adventure for all time. So in this way, we can take advantage of the better properties of mind and logic and the beautiful position in heart to help us cut this Gordian knot. We no longer have to be the rat in this maze. We don't even have to solve anything, merely recognize where we are and step out of it. It's truly that easy. It's a matter of vision, of flexing the perspective. Now, in the midst of all this, let's sink back deeply into heart and recognize that there's such a thing as being true to the here now moment. What is just is for us. There's no use pretending it's not. So let's let our first allegiance be to this here now space. Let's meet and greet whatever we find here without feeling the need to somehow run away from anything difficult, like looking like crap and having it show through. Oh well, what the heck do I care? Not right now. This can be the real sticking point for many people. Their previous programming has them almost terrified of looking at anything dark, much less acknowledging the darkness within. They want to believe it right out of existence, create another world instead of facing one that is right now. If that describes you in any way, just recognize this. That is a mind thing. That is mind trying its best to find a way out of some pain. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some may choose or prefer it to stopping now to just face what's here in the moment. And I send them on with my blessing. Each one gets to choose. It's their own life. And let's exalt that. Everyone's free right to choose. I say let's celebrate it. There may be a good reason behind their choice. We don't know. The higher self, their higher self, may be leading them in just that way. So we always give the other the benefit of the doubt. Well, let's give it to self as well, okay? Life's much more fun that way. Now, assuming you are the one who is willing to look and see and to sit with that which is, then let's continue our journey here. We won't be able to see the self acting the victim part out until we acknowledge that it could at least be possible, that this is something we might be doing in this or that situation. Once we make that allowance or acceptance, our perspective just changed. It broadened. We'll be seeing more now. Now, this is all best done, the way I see it, from the watch and observe mode. What's being educated, in a way, is the one watching. This one is benefiting from seeing all this action taking place. This one is learning to just be quiet and still. Into this quiet stillness come intuitions, come inner teachings. We don't know, or I don't know quite where they come from, but it doesn't matter. We can tell by the feel of them, they are blessings. If anything I say to you or put before you here in these journals seems out of your reach, just know that it's not. In all actuality, you are that. You are that I am. I am actually you going through that. That's all. As we step farther and farther back from being identified with our particular parts in the overall play, that is life, our ability to take in the larger perspective improves. As you take that stepped back perspective, you can see that my life going this way is due to so many choices, to my almost worship of truth and of balance, for instance. That's what makes some things easy for me that may not seem so for you. And likewise, there are things you are doing or enduring that I could not easily deal with, since your choices were different than mine. The beauty, though, is that fractally, each one benefits from the other one's growth, from their victories. Your work is my blessing. Mine is yours. Can you or have you stepped back yet far enough to perceive this? Or do you have other beliefs running interference? We often do, no big deal. As we choose our heart's desires and set our intent, hitching them to the highest star we perceive in that moment, what's in the way of that will quite naturally come to the fore, come to the surface. Just by sticking with our integrity and setting the highest intent we can now comprehend and make our own, everything else falls into place in support of that. That's how it's designed, it seems to me. It consistently works like that anyway. So, though it may seem like there's a regular shitstorm in your life right now, maybe step back a bit farther and take another look. It just isn't that. Now, sure, it is that. I'm not denying your experience. I'm just saying that it's that and so much more. How much of the more you can see depends on your chosen perspective. You see, that's what we really get to choose in life. You've got to admit, is our perspective on things. If we don't like it, we have the power to change it. Now, it may not be the simplest thing in the world to figure out how that's done, but we can. If we are earnest, if we have determination, well then, the world is our oyster. No, wait, I don't like that saying. It is now X'd out of my vocabulary. Let's let the oysters rest in peace. Anyway, how about giving some allegiance to having a flexible perspective? If you choose to adopt that as something powerful or precious, then the gift is yours. Your watch and observer will be able to see how things just fall into place to give you the gift you asked of life. You will get what you want. Now, are you wise enough to perceive it when it appears on your doorstep? That's a legitimate question for most people living right now. Many are too sound asleep in their day-to-day consciousness to perceive such things as even possible, much less the doorstep delivered goods. Well, that's not you. So just claim this if that's what you want. The secret to getting the desire fulfilled is this: being willing to greet and accept whatever comes, rejecting nothing. This is where we see again and again the beauty, the value of surrender. If you're placing conditions on your life, It must be such and so pleasant. It must not have any of thus and so, or you won't accept it. Well, if that's the case, then you've got some more miles to go and surrender to offer before you're ready for the gift you requested. Do you see how this works? In order to most easily see this, look at the life of the small child. See how the little one often asks for something she is not yet ready to receive. How it's just not possible yet or wise. The child can choose to tantrum and mourn, to be upset and angry, and you can see how basically worthless this is. Does it bring the gift any nearer to them? Not likely. Well, that's us, my friends. We all have some repressed tantruming locked away inside somewhere. Maybe the best thing to do is, like the child, to just give it vent. Maybe we just need to go through this. I don't know. One way or another, once we get past the tantrum, only then are we in good shape to go after what we want. No tantrum will bring it ultimately. That is playing the victim role too. Do you see? The child blames its parents or teachers or whomever for not getting what the child wants. Yet, is it really that one's fault? Did that one set out to deny the child anything it could really have? No, the not readiness is contained within the child. It requires internal work, not blaming anything external in life to bring about the readiness to accept the requested gift. It's great that we can see that thing, see its desirability. That's good all by itself. Whether we are ready to receive it or not, well, that's another matter. Do you see? I bet you do. So, with our flexible perspective here, watching and playing the role of the child, we get a better view of what may be acting in our own world and circumstances. Could we be sort of tantruming about certain things? You bet we can, and we are. It doesn't look the same as the child kicking and beating the floor while screaming, but it amounts to the same thing. It's playing the victim regardless. So, what I note at this point is the pain of the tantrum I'm having here. This agony I find repressed, but now present inside over the whole negative ET thing, the abductions and so on. Now, will this being willing to have the tantrum, to truly and deeply feel the pain of it, bring me what I desire? Two things here. First, I have no desires with regard to this pain. I just want to let it be. I'm not looking at it as a means to an end, as a way to triumph over the repressed anger, heal the liver, or any of that. I merely notice those things as present in the background. There's no conscious thought involved in this processing. Second, we all know how fruitful the child's temper tantrum is. It is not productive of the desired external results. If the parents are wise and don't give in, that is. So no, it is futile, not producing the desired results. Yet, maybe still, it's an important part of the internal development, the emotional life. One thing we know, it's real. This is how I or the child currently feel. Perhaps future parents will find more useful ways to help the child through this process. Teaching children to stuff their feelings, while sometimes required by circumstances, overall is not productive of growth. At least when we're at home and in a safe environment, let's allow the child to have her feelings. Let's not try to fix anything as if something were broken. Maybe in this way we can even parent our own inner child, the one who was repressed and trained to suppress all the difficult, awkward feelings and thoughts. That inner child is still in there in a way, still stuck in that hurt. That's the blockage we've been feeling at various times. It's the inner child who was never heard, respected, nor allowed to voice true inner feelings. Now, I know this is just a convenient metaphor, though it can also be more. Real growth and development can come by working with this particular perspective on things. Nonetheless, let's be aware that anything that separates, as this inner child thing separates out the being into parts and pieces, is no ultimate answer. At some point, all such perspectives must be transcended back into oneness, or brought into that oneness. As for me, I'll take anything that presents itself in the moment. Everything brings benefit. Everything blesses. It's just a matter of not getting attached to these things along the way, not getting calcified in one particular view or perspective. So we use it and move on. If it will be useful to us later, it will come back up again. We need not worry nor plan ahead. Let's just stick within this moment, knowing that it has everything required. Good day. Hey folks, this is an experiment. Now, right now, I look like crap, not just crap, but crap warmed over. So if Dino here starts flickering in and out, I'm out of here. It's only a body, but you know, maybe I got a little more respect for my audience. Okay, this journal came right after the last one I just posted. It's 11:20, the second of that day. I don't know the Mayan day. Victim, useful tantrums, and shifting perspective. Just finished a 9-page journal on dealing with pain. Well, forms is the other side of the coin, the dark side. From your center point there, look and realize that you haven't always been perfect in all of those lives. Heck no. You've been a real scoundrel in plenty of them. So have I. How else could we learn? So the trick played on mind is to have it realize that there's nothing that could be done that the I hasn't done at one time or another. We've been robber and king, beggar and priest, thief, warrior, rapist, and rapee. We've also been the victims of all of those. Are you surprised? Had you ever considered that sometimes maybe you play the victim role? If this idea is new to you, be sure to drop down out ahead into chest or heart, or just center in the here now. Take a few moments to do that, or your mind will lead you on a fine hide-and-seek chase in order to avoid the reality inside self. There's a mental trick I have that I use against the mind, and that's previous lifetimes. Even if you don't believe in them, you can still imagine this. So, do you sense yourself as an old soul, maybe very old? Do you have that sort of ancient sense regarding self, or maybe sometimes connect with it within? Okay, from there, go into envisioning that you've had many, what some call previous lifetimes. You've been not just on this planet, not just in this form, but in others, on others as well. Maybe even a dinosaur, huh? The soul is quite curious and eager for experience. So we've done a lot of exploring. That's what it amounts to. Well, one of those things we explore in addition to other worlds and other that is a simplistic summary, but if you viewed the previous journal, you know what is meant. Well, when I got to the end and I was selecting keywords, tags to go with it, I realized there had been no mention of the victim persona or consciousness. Now, frankly, that is wild. It's a glaring omission, and thus this journal to address the very present issue, not just in me, but in the whole world. You know, the victim consciousness is rife everywhere we look, and yes, that includes looking within.